today I'm here to do a continuation of a video series I started over the summer. That's right, I'm finally making video 2 to my Hogwarts House book recommendations video series, and today I am doing Slytherin, which honestly, I'm pretty jazzed about. Slytherin was definitely the house I was second most excited to make after Ravenclaw, which I've already done, just based on some of the house characteristics that I just feel like are so fun to read in books. Cunning, power-hungry people, dark, maybe a little more eerie is what comes to mind when I think of book recommendations based on Slytherin. Obviously you could be a Slytherin and not be power-hungry and evil, but there are some very famous Slytherins that are. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into my Slytherin book recommendations. The first book I'm going to talk about to me literally just epitomizes this entire video, and that is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. This is one of my all-time favorite books I have ever read, and it is full of dark and twisted characters, and it's just so incredible. This basically follows two self-made supervillains that are also arch nemesis of each other. They started out best friends and roommates in college, and as each of them individually grew their power, they began to become rivals and hate each other. This is a story of basically an evil man trying to do good in a way because he's trying to get rid of a more evil man. It's self-interested, but it also is helping a lot of people in the long run. We follow both of these men's perspectives. It is dark, it is incredible, it is delicious. One of my all-time favorite books, and there's a sequel, I believe, coming out pretty soon, and this is going to be adapted into a movie, which is just all sorts of exciting. But Vicious was the book that made me fall in love with V.E. Schwab, Victoria Schwab, and is just one of my all-time favorite novels. It is so twisted and just so good, and everyone needs to read it. The next book I'm going to recommend might come off as a little bit of a surprise, but that is Witchwood by Tahira Mafi. This is the second book to her Furthermore middle grade series, and this can actually be read as a standalone, so you definitely don't have to read Furthermore first to read Witchwood. The reason why I am recommending Witchwood as a Slytherin-esque read is that this is actually a pretty dark and morbid middle grade installation to this series, and it's also beautiful, full of friendship and full of really light-hearted things, but at its center it has a lot of really dark themes in a very twisted town that doesn't respect or care about a young girl going through a lot of huge troubles. This follows one of our main characters her name is Laylee, and she has a magical power that's kind of passed down generationally through her family. Her and her family are essentially tasked with preparing the dead to move on to their next stage, move on to death essentially, and without them basically they rise from the dead and take over souls, which is pretty dark. The beginning of the story, Laylee, through a variety of circumstances, is alone, as she herself, as a young girl, has to take on this task, this enormous task by herself. And the town in which she lives in very much takes advantage of her, are very much self-interested and selfish, and they don't appreciate Laylee and her skills, and we kind of follow the story from there. This is a story that does have some really positive notes of friendship, but again does have a very dark and dark themes running through it of, not being accepted and being an outcast, and what does that mean? And obviously we work through all of those things, and it's a really incredible and even inspiring story, but also the fact that the story does center around death and preparing corpses for burial. It's pretty dark as well, but it's so good. Next up we have First We Were Four by Alexander Surroway. This is one of the most delicious, contemporary-esque YA novels I have read in a long while. And this follows four friends who are incredibly close and are actually nervous about the looming high school graduation is going to kind of tear them apart as they separate and go their different ways for college or whatever they're doing post-graduation. They live in a small seaside town, and they decide to kind of bring their friendship together and kind of give it a lasting memory by starting their own cult. This cult started out as fun, light pranks on the town, just kind of like a way to hang out and bring each other together. But then this cult begins to grow, and more people begin to join, and it ends with one of the four dying. This story starts out where we know that someone is dead. We don't know how, we don't know why, and we read the entire book trying to get to the point of how something so innocent in a way could escalate to something so deadly and terrifying. This book is so good, and I have to say the writing style of this is one of my favorite aspects. It has such an unsettling note to it. As you read it, you feel like you understand the characters, but then you question yourself as well as you go through this book. It is so amazing, and the small town setting does wonders for it as well, and I think it's a great Slytherin read. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Girl with All the Gifts. This is a dark science fiction fun paranormal novel, and it follows our main character who is a young girl. And she loves learning, she loves going to school, she loves going to class. However, she is an interesting girl, she's strange. Every day, she's woken up by a whole squad of guards. She is tied down to a metal chair and rolled to her classroom with a gun pointed to her head. She tries to make jokes, they don't laugh at her. This girl is unusual, she's powerful, and she's dangerous. That's kind of all the synopsis you're supposed to know going into this novel as you sort of uncover what this girl is and what she means to everyone around her, and also as you uncover the secrets of the world. This is a dark thriller full of twists and turns and gray morality and a little girl who just wants to be a little girl but isn't. This is a great story that I feel like is full of action and will really leave you kind of like questioning the world and all of those things. The next book I have to recommend is a very recent read, and that is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I feel like this book is taking BookTube by storm, rightly so, but based on the title, you can imagine this is a dark YA fantasy fae-centered story, and it is so good and so delicious and everything you want it to be. This follows our main character Jude, and she is human, and at the beginning of the story, her mother's first husband comes, murders her parents, and whisks her and her two sisters away to fairyland. There, she basically lives in constant fear and is just trying her best to fit in into this world full of beauty and cruelty and all of those things. Jude passes her time training really hard with a sword and with strategy, hoping to essentially gain the power that she feels she lacks in a world full of incredibly powerful creatures. In this world, because she is human, she's definitely looked down upon by most of the creatures that live there, but none more than the cruel prince, Carden, who seemingly goes out of his way to ruin her life. She despises him, and they kind of form this intense rivalry of trying to destroy each other, you know, on every turn. However, on the eve of the current king wanting to step down, a huge amount of politics begin, which kind of transforms Jude's life and everyone's life around her, and she kind of finds herself stuck in the middle of it all. This is a story all about politics and rivalry and violence and pain and all of those things, but it's also an incredible story of redemption and trying to be the best person you can be, even though you've kind of been dealt a really crappy hand of cards. I absolutely loved this story. I thought it was great. The characters were so interesting to read from. Many of them you hate, but you also, they have a lot to say and they have a very interesting perspective, which really adds to the story. This is a really good book. And the last book I'm going to recommend for Slytherin Reads, I feel, is just very apt. And that is Three Dark Crowns. I couldn't make this video and not talk about this book. This is literally the most like political maneuvering dark YA novel that everyone needs to read, especially if you're a Slytherin. This is a story following an island that is a matriarchy. Every queen has triplets. Those triplets are separated to 3 different houses. Each of those houses possess different magical powers. One is the poison house. They're very good at eating poisons, creating poisons. One is an elemental house. They can control water, air, fire, things like that. And one is an animal house. They have animal companions and are really good with nature. This is a story of 3 sisters that were separated at a very young age to each of these political houses. And basically for one of them to take the crown, they have to kill the other 2 sisters. We follow each of their perspectives. We follow their motivations, what keeps them up at night, what breaks their heart. And it's a tragic story of love and also hatred. And it is just so flipping good. I mean, the politics and just the maneuverings within this story are just incredible. The writing is also so dark, but incredibly intriguing. I feel like I keep using the word incredibly, but I feel that way for real. Like, this book is so good. I mean, obviously I feel like I talk about it a lot on my channel, but I just feel like this is a great Slytherin read and I would be remiss if I didn't include it. Alrighty guys, those are my Slytherin reading recommendations. Let me know down below some books you think are really great books for the Slytherin house or for any Hogwarts house, as I would love to know. And I'll see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!